Good evening, everyone. This is Mayor Sean Patterson Howard, and welcome to our Wednesday update. Tonight, we have a very informative show for you. So we're asking that you please take a moment to share this with your networks. Please share with your networks. Today, we have members from Mount Vernon and Yonkers Police Department, as well as Mount Vernon and Yonkers Fire Department, to talk about the process to become a police officer or a fire officer and have those good civil service careers, providing different services and supports to your community. So this show came about, we had a police swearing in of our probationary police officers here in Mount Vernon a few weeks ago. And the class that we swore in was not necessarily representative at all of the community of Mount Vernon. And so lots of questions came to the forefront as to why there weren't more Mount Vernon people sworn in, why the class that was sworn in was not more diverse. And my response was we had not had a test since 2016. The Mount Vernon list had been finished, and we had to go to the county list to recruit people for the openings that we had. We quickly realized that many people in our community just don't understand the whole process that is civil service. And that's how you enter into 90% of the government positions, whether it's in Mount Vernon, Yonkers, White Plains, Westchester, or really anywhere in the country. So we are bringing some of our Guardians Association of Westchester-Rockland, Mount Vernon, Yonkers here. That's the Black law enforcement organization, and then our Vulcan Society, which is our Black firefighters here, because we really want to focus on minority recruitment, since this is not necessarily careers that are generational or are yet generational in our community. So with that said, we're going to bring our guests up to the forefront, and we're going to have them introduce themselves. We're going to start out with our Chief Addendo.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of the program. My name is Kim Robert Odendo. I'm the current chief of the Mount Vernon Fire Department. I've been in the position of chief for just over 2 years. I'm sorry, just under 2 years, a year and a half. And I've been with the fire service for 15 years.
Okay, and then we're going to go back and forth between police and fire. Our Lieutenant Charles Walker.
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you for having me this evening. It's an honor to be amongst these gentlemen here. My name is Lieutenant Charles Walker. I'm a lieutenant in the Yonkers Police Department, where I've been there for approximately 18 years. I'm also the president of the Yonkers Guardians Association.
Thank you for joining us tonight. And we're going to introduce Lieutenant Reggie Cruz. He is with the Yonkers Fire Department. Lieutenant Cruz.
How you doing? Good evening, Mayor Howard and all the rest of the panel. I'm a Yonkers firefighter, lieutenant, currently assigned to Station 1. And I've been in the Yonkers Fire Department I'm in my 24th year. I'm definitely honored to be here. I have worked on recruitment pretty much my entire career and prior to becoming a firefighter also. So I'll bring that insight into the discussion.
All right, and last but not least, our Detective Dave Clark of the Mount Vernon Police Department.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks for having me, Mayor Patterson Howard. Detective David Clark, representing the Westchester-Rockland Guardians tonight. Been on the job for 15 years, and I currently work out of the training unit. And I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much. So I guess, we can start. Chief Odendo has prepared some information, and a lot of it is applicable to both police and fire, because it really kind of talks about the civil service. But before we get there, gentlemen, one of the things that we talked about before going live online is that we need more minorities in police and fire service throughout our region. But one of the biggest challenges is that oftentimes this is an afterthought. A career in law enforcement and fire service for many persons of color is an afterthought. It may not be the thing that they have top of mind at 18 or 21 years old. Can you please tell us when you chose to enter into these careers and what made you make that decision?
I'll start. As for me, like we discussed prior to getting on, I was in my later 20s, and I'm probably like most people from the area I grew up. We didn't want to be police officers, so I literally ended up signing up for the exam on the last day, probably about an hour before closing to sign up. I just decided to go ahead and go do it. And like I said, it wasn't something I was prepared to do. But just having small children and working multiple jobs, and then wanting a career, to be able to provide for them. So that kind of is what drove me. And honestly, looking back at it, I wish I would have signed up a couple of years earlier.
Who's gonna go? Me? I'm on now.
Sure, Dave, and then Chief Adendo, because Chief, you were on mute.
Okay. So basically, for me, policing was an afterthought for me. I had came home from college, and I was already in the workforce and in the work field. And unfortunately, in 2000, my brother was murdered in the city of Mount Vernon. So that's the first time that I really had to have police interaction where my family was involved with them, and through going through the trial, the DA became like a mentor, and he's the one that actually started pushing to take civil service tests so that I could get a career, because at the time I just had a bunch of jobs, and in my eyes I was doing the right thing because I was working, but he was like, you need a career. So he kind of jump started that for me, because it definitely wasn't an afterthought. And just like Charlie said, in hindsight, I kind of wish that I would have done it a whole lot earlier, because I'd be either be able to retire by now, or I just would have had a lot more years in by now to be out here to help the community. So it's definitely something that is seen in our community. It's not something that a job that's glorified that people want, but we need you. We need people from the community out there, and hopefully this discussion will help with that.
Thank you, Chief.
Get my mute thing going. So for me, I'm very thankful. I was had the fortune of being not involved, but being the recipient of a very rigorous recruitment policy, a recruitment drive in Mount Vernon. Deputy Chief Stevenson, captain at the time, was part of the recruitment drive here in Mount Vernon. He was a friend of mine, and just by happenstance, working jobs just like the other members of the panel spoke about, and just happened to see the flyers and some of the announcements, and took the exam more as just a fluke than without any real intention of really planning to do it. I was 32 when I took the exam. Luckily for me, and as some of the panelists talked about, the process was very quick. Where these processes can take as long as 3 to 5 years. My process was about 8 months from written test to actually being hired. So I was lucky in that respect. But prior to me taking those exams, I had never been in a firehouse, never known anyone that was a firefighter, and had no access or any interaction with the fire department. So when we think about these types of jobs, something that I know we'll discuss today is just the cultural side of being part of the fire department, and historically for us, that's definitely for our culture. That's something that we historically gravitate to. So those are one of the areas that we definitely want to address going forward.
Thank you. And Lieutenant Cruz.
Oddly enough, my father was a police officer, and he had 5 brothers. He had 5 brothers. 4 of them were cops, in the city. So I grew up around police officers, but they didn't make a lot of money. You know, we grew up in subsidized housing because, you know, my father didn't make a lot of money. He retired in 92, probably until, you know, the last couple of years they started to get paid. So it wasn't an option as far as career, because I was looking to get a career where I could really make some more money. And as far as how I fell into the fire department, it just so happens I was on a break from college and I was home at the time. You know, I had a young child and my wife at the time, and I took a job doing fire recruitment as a civilian. And then a couple of the brothers there, one of them, Curtis Bracy, he was the former president of the Vulcan Society at the time, and two other brothers, and they sat down and explained to me about the benefits and the pay. And, you know, I didn't even understand all of that stuff. Overtime and check-in time and all that extra stuff. People call it fringe benefits. That was around the time where in Yonkers, the pay started to go up. So when I ran the numbers, it was strictly a monetary issue of, okay, I have a family to, you know, to handle right now. So what do I have to do? And my mindset switched at that time. I was young. I was 22 at the time. But this was me sitting down with these Black firefighters and them explaining everything to me over the course of a couple of weeks and even a month before I actually signed up and decided not to go back to school. So it was weird. But I did take the police department test because my father made me take it. And I just really wasn't considering being a cop. But oddly enough, I had missed the opportunity to become a police officer because I did well on that test, but I was away in college and I had turned it down. So, and I was home maybe a year and a half later with a wife and kid looking for a job, and I had passed that up. So, you know, I thank God that I had the opportunity because it did get me into the routine of taking the civil service test. And at that point, I took every civil service test I can get my hands on. And luckily for me, the fire department came up first, and that happened to be the best job for me.
Okay. So, you know, each of you came to your positions a different way. So if we can kind of really just break it down and walk people step by step through this process of what it looks like, you know, how to look up and find out who's offering an exam, where you can take exams, how you prepare for the exam, and then also what is the process leading all the way through going into the fire or the police academy and coming into the department. So Chief, can you start with some of that?
Absolutely.
Malcolm, if you could pull up the slide.
We put a slide, a quick little presentation together kind of to guide the conversation. But to your point, when we start thinking about these exams and something that we in some of the discussions that we hear on the panel may or may not have been as intentional in our approach. And again, I think that has something to do with just sort of culturally how we have been sort of shaped in the society that we come up in. I look at the young people that are part of the fire service early, and their parents bring them here. They make them a part of the fire service at a very young age. They become part of that family, and it becomes a generational type of event for some of these participants. Not necessarily something that we do here, and it's something that I think we as a people can do a better job at. But with that said, what we did was, and if you want to go to the next slide, Malcolm, we just talked about, or we want to think about what career path am I interested in? Today you have fire and police presented here, but that's not the only civil service opportunity available to you. There are hundreds of civil service exams, DPW, corrections, and the like that are also available to anyone that's interested in a life of public service. But it's very important to at least have an idea of what you want to do and then start thinking about the qualifications for those positions. And then what parameters or what are the parameters for access into that type of job? Do I have the capabilities? Do I have whatever, you know, police? Am I going to be able to pass the different tests, the psychological and the different, I'm not going to call them obstacles, but the evaluations that are going to be part of that assessment. And I want to kind of take stock of that before I even begin that process. And if I don't have, or if I'm falling short in those areas, making sure that I immediately address those points and make sure that I tighten that up early. The panelists talked about a testing process. The mayor also talked about a testing process. Almost every public service exam, because of the process of the merit system that is part of civil service, there is some sort of evaluation of testing, and then there's a ranking of those test scores. So you want to make sure that if there's a testing process, that you know what it is, you understand how it works, that you are clear on the objectives and the goals of that exam, and that you score inevitably, that you score very well to be part of the highest, or that high ranking section of candidates, or that cohort, so that you can be called early. As some of the panelists alluded to, some of these processes can last as long as 5 years. And just thinking about what you may have to endure while you're waiting for an exam or a city to call you back, and just making sure that you're able to manage, family and some of the other things. Also, the panelists talked about it. Obviously, the younger, and I started late, but the younger, the better. I think you stand a better chance of enduring some of the ups and downs of the testing process if you start out a little bit younger. I had a family when I started, so I had to manage that. I think a couple of the other panelists talked about that as well. And then I'll just talk quickly about the eligibility requirements. So not only is there a testing process, but there may be other eligibility requirements. One of the major ones is residence or residency, living in the municipality that you're looking to serve in. That's one of the points, definitely, for the Mount Vernon Fire Department. At the entry level, there is a requirement that you do live in Mount Vernon, and that you've lived in Mount Vernon prior to the test, and then even after the test for some time. And that is for a lot of reasons, but one of the main reasons is that as a citizen, you know the community, and you're giving back to the community, and you're also serving the people that you know and are dear to you. I can push forward, but I definitely don't want to dominate the entire discussion. So if anyone else wants to jump in, but there are some other points that we definitely want to make sure we hit.
I'll jump in on that just to piggyback off what you said. The process of being a firefighter and police officer is different. So we do have to make sure that we make that distinction. And the test is different. So the skill set that you need to become a police officer is different than what you need to become a firefighter. In Mount Vernon particularly, the written test is a pass or fail test. So it's not, you have to make a minimum score, and then you move on to the physical agility portion. So in Mount Vernon, as far as the fire department is concerned, it's important that you're recruiting year round, and you have to identify the good athletes. You have to identify people that you feel that can physically do this job, and that's going to be one of the biggest things, because Mount Vernon is completely, once you pass that written test, then everything is based on your physical agility, and it's the top of the line of who scores on that physical agility exam. So that's one thing in Mount Vernon. The other thing is the year-round recruitment. I think that, and me and Chief Odendo have talked about this, we have to get out into the community on a year-round basis and identify people and expose them to the careers of firefighting. Because if you haven't been exposed to it, and you're not able to come to the firehouse or see somebody and project yourself to be a firefighter, you're not gonna, you're never gonna bounce that around in your brain. I grew up in Yonkers on Riverdale Avenue, and I lived across the street from the firehouse, and I never even considered becoming a firefighter. Like, I don't even remember that fire truck going out. I don't remember hearing it. And I lived there, for 22 years. So they never came to our schools. They never came to, there was no live events at our, cookouts or family day or anything like that. So had I been exposed to that earlier, I think it would have been better. So I think that getting out there early and exposing the kids to police and fire is pivotal, because people have choices, especially the really good, talented individuals that did what they were supposed to do. They're going to go to college. They're going to try to figure out what's going on. And if they can come back to a job with good pay and benefits, that's the other half of it. If I run the numbers and say, okay, yeah, I want to be a fireman, but how much is it paying me? And I have options to do other things, I may choose another career. But if I can look at the camaraderie and the working hours and the benefits, and I run the numbers and the fire department works for me, I think a lot more people will consider it as a career. So I think constantly recruiting on a year-round basis and not just right before the exam, I think that that's key, because you miss a really big group of people when you only start right before the test. You miss everybody before that. And that's something that we've worked on. I've worked with Charlie. I've also worked with Rob, where I get some of their guys that took the police department test. Charlie gave me a stack of papers. It took me like 3 weeks to go through, but I called almost everybody on that list that was still eligible. And I got a lot of people to come in and consider, taking the fire department, and vice versa. I gave him my information. And a lot of my candidates, particularly my women, I had about 5 women that did not make it through the fire department, but 4 out of the 5 ended up becoming police officers and state troopers because I referred them into that other job. So once they consider public service, I think we all got to stick together and kind of, if one job is not good for them, we pass them on to another job that might be a better fit for them, that their skill set is more suited toward.
So if I could just inject a question, because, this is one of the first questions that came up. They said, if I live in a certain community, do I have to take the test in that community? Do I, there are hiring preferences based on the community that you live in. And then there is like countywide lists. Can you speak to what that process looks like? Dave, can you talk about that for a moment?
Okay, so especially in Mount Vernon, our biggest issue is we have a residency. Our test is pretty much open, but we preference and reference the residents first. Our issue in Mount Vernon, though, is that we don't have many residents that take the test. That's our biggest issue, our biggest problem. That's the biggest push that we need. We need Mount Vernon residents to take the test, because when you don't, it allows us to have to open up the doors to the Bronx, Queens, Manhattan, Westchester, Rockland, places of that nature. And people come in drones to come to Mount Vernon because they want to use Mount Vernon as a launching pad to another police department. Ours isn't as easy as the fire department, where we could require the residency and require them to stay here, to live here and stuff, because we're just not pumping out the numbers that we need of residents to take this test. There's a Westchester County test that comes out, a towns and villages test. Once you take that police test, then you're on Westchester County Police's test, and then you're on the towns and villages. And then sometimes they also include some of the cities. So you just check off all the boxes where you want to do. Because we're our own city, we hold our own tests. But like the mayor said previously, we have not had a test since 2016, unfortunately. And it's really, really set us back this year, especially with police reform and all the things that are going on in the world and in communities. And diversity is a big part of police reform. So in Westchester County, of course, Mount Vernon, we're now losing out because we are the most diverse police department, because our police department always has probably been the most diverse in Westchester County, as opposed to any of the others. So now they're coming to our department and taking all of our minority officers to fill police reform, to quote unquote have diversity in their departments that they never really wanted before. So we're the ones that are losing out now on this. So it's imperative that when we are able to have our next test in Mount Vernon, that as many residents, minorities, I don't care what your background is. If you are from Mount Vernon and you are 20 years old to 34 years old, we need you to take the test. It is that imperative. And we just need you guys to come aboard, because we are right now, we are hurting for residents in our city to police.
So Dave, I know we haven't had a test since 2016, and we wanted to have one in 2020. We budgeted for it, but because of COVID, all of the civil service tests across the state were canceled. So
Right.
what we're doing right now is we anticipate a test happening in May. We anticipate one. We're still trying to get final notice from the state. So in anticipation of the test that we expect to happen in May, or we're hoping to happen in May, what are the Guardians prepared to do? How
Well,
can we recruit people? How can we get people who are interested in taking the test and prepare them for the test? Can you talk about that process? And then we're going to ask the Vulcan Society to do the same.
okay, well, the Guardians, we had our first meeting at the beginning of the year, and that was the focal point moving forward this year, for the Guardians to get out, be more vocal, get into these communities for diversity, and get more Black and brown people to start taking the police exam, to bridge the gaps in these communities, explain to them the process, just like Lieutenant Cruz was saying, how those firemen walked him through, and they explained everything about benefits, everything. That's something that this time we want to hold people's hands and be with them throughout the entire process. So if I get 3 or 4 people that I know want to take the test, I'm following those 3 and 4 people. I'm following up with them. That's everybody's goal moving forward. Also, just like Charlie was saying earlier, tutoring, preparing them for the tests, meeting somewhere. It's a lot harder because, we can't really meet in person. And having, with this, you kind of got to be hands-on a little bit to get how to take these tests. So having a Zoom with this is going to be a little bit difficult. So I know with the Westchester-Rockland Guardians, I think there's a facility in White Plains that they have. So maybe that we were going to utilize that, where people could come in, and maybe we would have to schedule different days, and we would have to all, pitch in and come and help with the tutoring to prepare them. But for this, moving forward, it's all boots on the ground. The only scary part is like I said, for Mount Vernon, if a test is in May, recruiting should be starting now. Mount Vernon, we don't have the luxury of waiting. We need to get as many people as possible, because like Mayor, we're already down 23, 24 cops at our job, and by May that number could be even more. So the recruitment process is very, very, very important. And there's young people in Mount Vernon that want to take the test. It's just that I think us, as the OGs in policing, we have to get out there and do our part as well to bring these young people in to get into this profession.
So like we said, we're anticipating, based on our communication with the state, that we will be offering a police officer's exam in May. So at this point right now, if those who are out there watching, please share this video, please tag your friends and share this video now or after we're finished. We want this information to get out there. Start reaching out. Go over to the police department. Let them know you're interested. Ask for Dave. Ask for the commissioners. Tell them to please put your name down on the list so that we can start reaching out to you. Especially, I know the Guardian said that they're looking to start offering preparation class in February for the May exam. So please start reaching out to us now so that we can know if you're interested and get you into these classes. So Chief Odindo, do you think, whether it's for police or fire, that these preparatory classes are important? Do they make a difference in people's success in passing or failing these exams? And what do the exams look like, whether it's police or fire? Is it reading? Is it math? What type of things are included? And do the classes make a difference?
He's on mute.
Chief, we can't hear you. Oh. Nope. We still can't hear you. I don't know why. It doesn't say that you're on mute, so I'm not sure. I can't see on this end. So, Lieutenant Walker, the classes, are you there now, Chief? Try it again. We're not getting any sound from you. Not sure what happened. Okay. Lieutenant Walker?
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so in terms of the city of Yonkers, we have a different issue than what Dave spoke about, Detective Clark, is because we have a preferential list as well as far as Yonkers residents. We do take applications from outside of Yonkers, but there are so many Yonkers residents who take the exam that we just about never leave that Yonkers list. Now it's just a question of who's on that list and who's taking that test. But in terms of the classes themselves, excuse me, what we've done over the years is that we've partnered with other organizations, community organizations, and with the department itself, and we've identified African American applicants. And before the test even starts, we start reaching out, and as Dave mentioned, just started holding hands to the point where we just started building relationships. So we would offer classes because the city would also offer classes, but that was close to the test. What we would do was offer classes months prior to the exam. We partnered up with Jim Bostic over at the Nebrand Community Center and was able to use his facility. And it's something we may do in a social distancing type of way, but we will continue to explore that option. But we also we help practice for the physical itself. So we do that at different locations in Yonkers. We also go through helping prepare for the interview process. When there's background checks, there may be something where you may have an unpaid ticket or something, just kind of walking you through some of the stumbling blocks, the pitfalls that you may face as you go through the process. So we try to walk you from the application process all the way through. And so that's what we're doing now. In terms of the test itself, it has changed. The state kind of reevaluates the test every couple of years. And prior to now, the test consisted pretty much of reading comprehension questions. There were some memory questions, but for the most part, you may have 75 or so reading comprehension type of questions. Now they just changed it. We have some information on what the new test would look like, but it doesn't consist of as many reading comprehension questions. So we're still getting information to kind of formulate how we're going to do the class. And I believe that's statewide, but we'll continue to do that. But that's kind of the process we do. We start recruitment, and to Reggie's point, Lieutenant Cruz and I have worked together over the years, and we'll pull from each other's lists. So not only do we wait for them to fill out the applications, but we try to identify much earlier. And real quick, I won't take up too much time, but when we talk about the recruitment process, I think we're, at least for a police department, we're in a different time now. So where years ago, especially in Yonkers, you may be able to talk about the benefits, the pay, and though those things are still there and they're appealing to a lot of people, we're in a different time. So I think particularly in the Black community, it's more of speaking to them based on where we at, the space we're in now, and people being policed by members of their own community, people who look like them. We have to feel like now, with everything going on, that we're actually part of the solution, that this is bigger than just how much we're going to make, that if we really want to make a change, then we really have to be on this side of the fence. And that's kind of where we're shaping our recruitment strategy. And it's just being transparent and open about the space we're in and acknowledging the time we're in, and understanding that that young 20-year-old, that 21-year-old, you may get a high paying salary. You'll get all of those things, but this is bigger than that. This is about making a difference in your own community. And that's what people, I think, not only here and people watching here, but just all across the country, people are calling for that. People want to see faces like theirs policing the community who have that particular understanding. So I think we need to listen and kind of use that as part of our recruitment strategies.
And like you said, I think it's important to have that honest conversation. When you go to schools in different places, everyone's like, I want to be an athlete. I want to be in entertainment. People want to make that fast money. They want to make large money. They want to have the fly car, fly house, fly this. But at the same time, we're saying that our public servants don't mimic and don't reflect the diversity in our community. Well, it never will if we do not consider opportunities in public office. Trust me, I could make double or triple what I make right now instead of being the mayor, but I've offered myself up for public service. Each of you have offered yourself up for public service, and that makes a difference. We do have to do better, especially here in Mount Vernon, around being competitive, much more competitive when it comes to our pay, but that's not going to happen overnight. But a public service career is an honest career where you're not looking over your back, trying to figure out if you're doing something illegal, where you're not always trying to grind and spend 20 hours in the studio, hoping that someone picks up your record and things of that nature. So it may not be a get rich quick scheme, but it does offer an honest career, not just a job, but an honest career with very good benefits and longevity. And that is something that we do have to put forward. So Malcolm, if you could put some of the questions up, and Chief Odendo, let's see if we can get you back in. Did your sound issues resolve themselves? Unmute yourself, because now you're muted. Unmute yourself, Chief.
Okay, I think they did.
Here you go. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Thank you.
Did we lose you on the sound? So it said, police department had a youth mentoring program and there went to the fire department. The question, Chief, is the police had a youth mentoring program. Is there going to be something like that for fire?
Tremendous question. This is something that we're actually looking to develop this year. We had a program that we started a couple of years ago, and we had a couple of young men in it, and it went very well. We sort of shepherded them through their sixth, seventh, and eighth grade courses, and we ran it more as a pilot program, but we don't have anything formalized in place now. We are looking to partner with the elementary schools once we're able to kind of transition out of COVID. And at that point, we will be looking again to deal with or work with children, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and then also into the high school. The other point to be made with the mentoring program is that once we do get that going, is to create a pipeline through the high school where a young person can become an EMT at first, or what we call an EMT, short for emergency medical technician, someone that would work on the ambulance, which is a sister organization to the work that we do on the fire side, and then have that person over the course of time test and become part of the fire department, and then transition into the fire department with some sort of test benefit because of the fact that they've served as an EMT. So these are programs that we are very excited and are looking forward to put in place as soon as we can get through this COVID episode in the city. But a very important part of the recruitment. And back to the original point of starting out young. The key to these careers is to get in early, to start young. And I saw one of the questions that came up in the chat about even preparing for retirement early. So historically, these types of careers will allow you to work 20 years or 25 years in the case of some of the new tiers, and retire with a pension and the possibility to either earn money doing a second career and or retire and just still have a decent amount of lifetime available to you to just enjoy. So that's the other side of public service. So to the original point, no, you won't make a lot of money necessarily, but the benefits may sort of manage some of the risks that you're taking by taking one of these careers.
Okay, so one of the things that we know that there are youth explorer programs. That's something that is common in a lot of police departments, youth explorer programs. In Mount Vernon, we call it the Youth Police Academy, but those are programs usually offered to those high school young people, maybe up until the age of 18 or 20. Have we ever thought, because like we said, oftentimes if you're not thinking about it in high school, um, do you think the Guardians or the Vulcan Society would be willing to create some type of explorers program for really those people between the ages of 25 and 26 or 21 and 30 to take a second chance at reaching out to the population that may not have been interested in high school? You know, how do we really do some intentional outreach and start engaging people in that 21 to 30 range before it's too late? As I think probably for both of your departments, 35 is when you're kind of maxing out the eligibility to come into the departments. So how do we take a second stab at a community of people who may not have been thinking about it in high school?
Well, I'll let Lieutenant Cruz speak to this, but I believe that the fire department's even less in age. We're 35. Well, you can't be 35, so actually 34. But I think it's even less, and maybe 29 or something like that. But I'll let Lieutenant Cruz speak to it. But to your point, Mayor Howard, yes, we're actually developing a program now, sort of like a cadet explorer program, just for that purpose, just to get that continuous outreach. Obviously, the work we've done with MBK and our mentoring programs, we've mentored students through that program. We partnered with them over the last couple of years. We take advantage of that. We actually also go into schools, but to take a more proactive approach with that as well, we wanted to develop our own program, kind of like you said, to just keep in steady contact and build those relationships with that group, especially that that kind of window where, you know, and Reggie growing up and Lieutenant Cruz growing up where he grew up and where I grew up, kind of that window after high school where you lose the teachers and the guidance counselors and everyone else, that support system that you may have, and you're kind of on your own if you don't go to college. So absolutely, we're looking to come up, with a program that deals with the high school age, but really with that sweet spot, that window, that dangerous point where, you know, decisions can be made that can impact your entire life. So we want to get them there as well. So hopefully within the next year or so, we'll have that program up and running.
Okay. So if we can kind of just go back and walk through a little bit of the process, because getting people interested is one thing, but helping people to really understand this process, how you prepare for the tests, what does it look like to take the test, getting on multiple lists, not only in your community, but throughout the county, and then preparing for the interview process, preparing for the physical agility exam, preparing for in the case of police departments, the psychological exam, and then the things that might disqualify you, because there are things that will disqualify you from being hired from police and fire service. So if we can just speak to, again, taking the civil service exam, signing up for it. Chief, since you're back on now.
Yeah, quickly, I think timeframes, and I think this was kind of spoken about a little earlier. Timeframes are going to be really important. Mount Vernon Fire Department does not have an age requirement, but Yonkers Fire Department and Lieutenant Reggie Cruz will speak to that. And many of the other fire departments do have an age requirement of 29. So if we're talking again about a time frame of anywhere from 3 to 5 years, you could end up aging out of that process before you're called on the list. So that managing that time frame is very important, but also the testing time frame. So many of these civil service exams also have a lifespan. For a fire entry or firefighter entry level exam in Mount Vernon, you take the test and it's a 4-year list. Well, that would be a reason to really want to score well or score high, because in 4 years, depending on how aggressive hiring is in that organization, they may not get all the way down to the 50th or the 60th or the 70th person on that list. So you want to, in terms of that time frame, think about your ability to do well, and then the lifespan of that list. You also want to think about when you're supposed to hand these applications in. I think one of the panelists talked about the fact that they handed the test exam in the day before the deadline. And a lot of these exams, most of these exams have some level of a deadline. You want to make sure that you are well ahead of that deadline, because if you are missing paperwork or missing a component of that submission process, that you can circle back and get that handed in. You don't want to be standing there and they're telling you, you know, you got a half an hour to get back here with your license or something, and now you're scrambling. So time frames and the requirements for the submission of the exam are very, very important. And when we start to mentor and talk to the members or the participants that are looking to take these types of exams, that evaluation process or that testing process actually begins when you submit your exam. How well can you follow directions? How well can you follow directions in terms of filling out that application, of returning that application on or well before that deadline, of submitting all of the proper materials that are needed for that application? So that testing process, if you will, starts, you know, as early as when you pick up that application. It's something that we should really think about when we take these exams. It's not when I get accepted into the organization, now I have to think about testing. Following directions, paying attention to detail, those are going to be skills that are going to help you from the beginning of that process all the way through your career. And then thinking about, when you submit this information, what type of qualifications might I already have that will enhance my marketability, if you will. So thinking about, if you have college, and I heard a couple of panelists talk about, you know, college versus public service, but we want to think about college and public service, because we also understand that as in terms of mobility, college is going to help when you have to take the promotional exams. Being able to read and write and process information well is also going to be very important in moving, not only getting you into the position, but then also moving you up the rank through the different levels of authority in that organization. So all of those skills are going to be really important. Mentoring is going to be key. If you can partner with someone that's already in the organization, that is going to be essential. I know with Mount Vernon Fire Department, we're looking to do better outreach. Our outreach has been fair at best, but any opportunity or anyone that is interested in becoming a firefighter in the city of Mount Vernon, we will do, and I will personally extend myself out to the community to make sure that we can help, again, shepherd you through this process as effectively as possible.
Thank you, because that's very comprehensive. So wherever you live, Yonkers, Mount Vernon, White Plains, New Rochelle, wherever you live, you should become best friends with the people in the Civil Service Department. People always say, well, you know, you got to let us know. Well, you also have to do your research. If you're interested in a career in public service, there is nothing that prevents you from walking into the office of City Hall or the county office building, asking for the Civil Service Department, and looking at the positions or the examinations that are coming up. Also, you can usually find this information on the websites of different governments, and they'll tell you, these are the different exams, this is what's coming up, these are some of the basic general qualifications, and this is how you process. People are not going to knock on the door of your house to tell you an exam is coming up. Everyone wants people to come out and do special outreach to them, to their school. But at the same time, we have to teach our young people and our adults how to seek and pursue what they are interested in. It's a two-way street. So there is nothing that prevents you from coming into any city hall or any county office building to go into the civil service office and ask them and start getting to know the people and the staff in the building. It's about relationships. So here in Mount Vernon, you go in and you see Pat and you say, hey, Pat, you know, I'm looking for some things and here's my number or here's my email. Can you let me know when other things are coming up? You do the same. If you're interested in buying something from Best Buy, you want a Xbox or a PS5 for your kid, you're like, look, when you get some in the store, please call me and let me know. But we have to pursue things. And if you're going to be lazy about a pursuit of a career, then you're never going to make it really well. So there has to be community outreach, but also there has to be pursuit of this if you are interested. I don't know what just happened, but if I am still on, I don't know if I'm still on or if I lost you guys.
You're still on.
Still on.
I'm still. There we go. Okay. Something happened strange on my end. I just lost everyone. So, do that. But so Dave, if you can speak to some of the information about, the process, the screening process. So say the person has gone and they've put in their application, they've taken the test, and now they're on the list and they start calling them in for the interview process. Can you talk about that screening process? And we're going to ask Lieutenant Cruz to also talk about that screening process.
Okay, so you
I think he drank.
So, Lieutenant Walker, can you talk about what the screening process might look like?
Well, we have our special investigations unit who will handle background checks. So you will get a substantial amount of paperwork when you get to that process. And just to give it a linear kind of time frame, you'd fill out the application, you will get your score back, and then you will be called in for a physical exam. You'll get a practice exam if you're a resident, let's say, of Yonkers. Then you'll take the actual exam. Then they'll start doing the background checks. You take a psychological, you do your background, your medical, and that's after both the written and the physical. But in that background check, there's packets. They're going to look at your background, your former employment. They're going to make sure that you live where you say you live. They're going to check your social media. They're going to see, as Detective Clark mentioned before, criminal records, understanding that a felony will disqualify you, but not so much a misdemeanor, depending on what that misdemeanor is. Sometimes people feel like, oh, I did something dumb when I was young. I got arrested for weed or something like that. They'll never call me. That's not the case. That won't disqualify you. So I don't want people listening to think that because you got into, involved in something minor when you were young, that it automatically disqualifies you. So they'll just, obviously, education and former employees, they may go to your residents or your neighbors and talk about, just seeing if you live there, and then maybe discuss the type of person you are as well. And then you'll go in for like an actual interview process. So there's an extensive kind of background check that is done. Again, it's not to, scare anyone off, is, and I'm sure with the Westchester-Rockland Guardians as well as the Yonkers, we kind of walk you through that process. So you're not left out in the dark.
Thank you, Lieutenant Walker. Dave, do you have anything else to add about the screening process?
Do you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the only thing that I think Lieutenant Walker, he touched on everything. The only thing that tends to disqualify a lot of the people is, like he said, that packet. The packet that you are given to fill out, you have to be honest, you have to be truthful, and you have to fill out every bit of the paperwork. I cannot tell you how many people we have had to let go because they don't comply with the process, because it is tedious and it is a lot, and the window of time that you're given to fill it out, especially in Mount Vernon, because we are normally hiring twice a year because we have cops leaving to go to other jobs. When we give you those time periods to get all that paperwork in, you have to get it in. Just like he said, all of the things that he broke down, that is true. Just because you made a mistake early in your life, if it's a misdemeanor, it's not really an issue. The issue becomes if you don't tell us the truth about it. And that's where a lot of people get banged up coming in through the process.
So other than preparing to take the test, would the Guardians and the Vulcans kind of work with prospective people in preparing them for the paperwork that they have to fill out, working with them to fill out that paperwork and preparing for the interviews?
Yes. Yes, that was actually a big part of our meeting that we had in January, was the process of us actually taking on individuals and walking them through the process, so that.
I don't know. We're having some technical difficulties. He's dropping off, but we want to make sure that we're walking people through the process, is what he said. So the Guardians and the Vulcans will work with people. Yes.
No, I was just going to say real quick, and I think it may be important to touch on. I don't know what Mount Vernon is going to end up being, but Yonkers and Lieutenant Cruz could speak to this. Our test, our civil service test for police comes with a cost, as all of the civil service tests, but we're up to $100. And in the past, we've been at $25. And I see Lieutenant Cruz can spend 2 hours on that if he wanted to, but that could become a hindrance as well when we talk about certain communities with the ability to we want to encourage people to take as many civil service tests as they can, but they can incur cost as well. So some of the partnerships we developed with some of the organizations here in Yonkers, we're developing a way to kind of help offset some of that cost. So, some people may feel like there's something in their background that may disqualify them. Some may want the job, but may be financially disadvantaged in such a way that, they can't afford to take several $100 exams. So we are coming up with a way to kind of help in that process too. So I don't want people to feel like they see $100, oh, I can't afford that, or no one should be thought of just because they're not paying $100 that, oh, you really don't want it, because that's not the case. Sometimes,
you really don't have it.
You really don't have it. I could think of my position when I took the test, because, as Chief mentioned, I was that one that signed up the last day. I had children, I had, so if the test was $100 back then, I might have not been here right now. You know what I mean? So we are coming up with ways. I just wanted to make mention of that as well.
So, gentlemen, we have like a minute and a half. We have to close out. We definitely want to make sure we have you back. This is such an important conversation, developing your career path, understanding the civil service process, how to engage with organizations, how to find yourselves a mentor, how to get connected. We will put contact information in this video in the comment section so that people can connect with your organizations and see if you have websites, or reach out to the different departments to connect with you. But we really, really have to close out now. But would you be willing to come back and do a part 2 or do a different type of forum where we can continue to get this information out, because it's really important? Thank you so much. We're going to bring you back. We'll give out information on when you'll be offering these classes. But people can start reaching out now to our civil service office, to the mayor's office, and reach out to Detective Clark over at the police department in Mount Vernon. If you are interested in this May examination, please reach out. We cannot reach out to everyone, so please reach out. And if you know people who are interested, tell them to start reaching out now so we can push information out about these classes. Thank you so much. We'll probably have you back during Black History Month, but we want to make sure we get information out now concerning how people can connect with your organizations to prepare for exams and start building relationships. Thank you so, so much. Everyone have a blessed night, and I appreciate you all. Stay here for a minute, even after we go offline. Stay in.